Welcome back to We're Not the Same. I'm Brian here with my beautiful wife, Katie, and we are back.
And today we're going to be talking about doctoring yourself, the risks and benefits of that, how to do it, why to do it, all the things. So thank you guys for being here. Leave us 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on, and let's dive in. So this topic basically just kind of popped into my head one day. A lot of times when I'm just on social media or just driving in the car or something pops into my head and then I write it in my phone. Like, oh, we should talk about that.
Thank goodness you do, since you seem to be forgetting them.
Definitely
I have a new podcast episode idea. Cool. What is it? I don't know. Luckily, I wrote it down, though.
Yes, luckily I do write it down. Learn my lesson, because there have been probably a few that were just, those were the ideas that were going to make us take off, and they're just gone forever.
Oops. They'll come back.
So today, talking about doctoring yourself, the risks and benefits, pros and cons, what does it mean to doctor yourself, and basically just all the things that go with that.
And we're talking more than putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yes. With this topic, talking more specifically about more chronic illnesses, I guess you would call it, or ailments that you're dealing with, not like, oh, you have a cold, you have a flu, you have a virus, you have something like that.
These are more, chronic illnesses. This isn't just your elderberries and stuff to get over sicknesses. This is like your IBSs and your,
anxiety
and all the things where you go to the doctor over and over again and they don't have really a solution for you, or the things that they do prescribe or the things that they do have you try don't have any effect and you're still struggling with them.
Yeah, because we've both had our different experiences with that, of going to not just conventional doctors, but specialists, more supposedly holistic doctors and different things, and just not getting anywhere basically with that. And so then that's how we got on this journey of doctoring ourselves and all that. One of the things I wanted to talk about was with social media, and I want to do a whole topic on social media because I have a lot to say about that in general, but and being like an influencer, air quotes, influencer, creator, whatever word you want to use. But for this episode, I think in social media, specifically Instagram, for me, that's my main drug of choice. That has been an integral part of learning a lot of new things. But you also have to be careful, because at the end of the day, literally anyone could go on and put together an infographic, and, as much as they like to pretend they have these fact checkers, they're not actually checking the facts of anything that, matters, and they're never correct if they were anyways. But, so you do have to take everything with a grain of salt and do your own research outside of social media. But one of the things that kind of hurt me, like, it didn't hurt me, but it just was something I had to figure out, was I was seeing a lot of posts about two different things: estrogen dominance and like liver issues, that I was seeing over and over and over again, people talking about, listing off symptoms that were matching, things that I was experiencing with estrogen dominance and then like liver issues. And so, you start believing that that's what's wrong with you. And so then you're going down a path of doing things that can help to, heal those problems. But the whole time, never actually like testing and knowing that that's what's wrong with you. And so eventually got to a point where I realized I need to be doing tests and not just making assumptions based off of a list of symptoms, because you start to realize that a lot of issues lead to the same symptoms. A lot of things can cause anxiety. A lot of things can cause fatigue and hair loss and, all those sorts of things. So there's two different tests that I did. And so the first one is called the Dutch test, and that is to test all your hormones. And so I think I mentioned that on Instagram, or mentioned something about testing hormones. And I got a lot of questions, and then I've never gone back and talked about it. So this is it. If you're interested in learning about the Dutch test, it stands for like dry urine something test. And you basically, there's a couple different ones, but if you do the most complete one, you at a certain time during your cycle, you do like 4, I think, urine samples throughout the day, and send it in. And like, it's amazing how much they figure out from pee on a paper. But through doing that, I learned that I do not have estrogen dominance at all. I have more the opposite issue of more testosterone, but it was just a good thing to look into and figure out some of those answers. So I recommend that for women. Yes, it's expensive, but I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell people with the cost. Like, stuff is expensive and you just have to decide if you're worth it. And I think you're worth it. So,
and I feel like too, the first step I feel like before even diving into this is all the stuff that we've talked about in the past. Like, I think the healthy eating and all of that is like where you start before anything else, because I feel like you have to do that first, because that is going to solve a lot of issues. But then if you get all the way through that, and you don't have to be 100%, but 80-20 or 90-10, like for a extended period of time, that's going to solve a lot of problems. But if you're still having problems after that, I think that's when that comes into like, okay, what are my next steps?
And I think that's where that's where I was at when I was doing the testing, was after, we had kind of been down this journey, felt like had tried everything. And, you see some improvement, but then, like there's still some issues that you just are like, what the heck? Like, why isn't this happening? And then you get to a point where you're spending all this money on different supplements, and you're taking supplements, and, are they doing anything? Are these right? And whatever. And so put some of that money, put some supplements on pause, and use that budget to pay for some testing to make sure that you're actually like doing things that are going to be beneficial for you. And so that's the other thing too. Well, let me talk about the other test. So then the other test that I did, because I started convincing myself that I had a liver issue.
Mm-hmm. Because you used to have a liver when you got off.
Well, that's my birth control story, which that's another episode we need to do. Is that birth control literally destroyed my liver? Like, it was non-functioning, and then luckily it did heal itself, which is miraculous. Yes, thank you, God, and has been okay ever since, and is still okay. Actually, doing phenomenal. Shout out to my liver. But I had convinced myself that I was somehow having these liver issues. And so even though we were taking beef liver for like a year straight, I was like, I could not possibly have liver issues. Yes. And sure enough, my liver is great. So shout out to beef liver capsules too. But the Quest Diagnostics, which you probably, if you've ever had blood work done,
it's either Quest or LabCorp.
Yeah, like you've probably heard of Quest. So you now can actually through Quest order your own lab work. And so that's amazing. I love that.
I know. A la carte.
And it's really not that expensive. It's very affordable. So you can just go online and like order your test, schedule your appointment. You go in, do it, and then you get the results, from that. And so I did several panels of blood work to just get some answers on things, check everything out. And, that was helpful to me to be able to see and to just give me some comfort to know, like, okay, you don't actually have a liver issue.
Yep.
And that's the thing too. Like, if you go for an annual visit or whatever, they do your blood work, you might be thinking, well, I don't need blood work because I get this blood work done. Well, first of all, what they do at an annual exam is usually just a CBC, which does not have all of the testing.
Yeah. If they're good at all, they should do the metabolic panel too. Like those two, the CBC and then the metabolic panel. But anything beyond that, they don't do.
Well, I was thinking, I guess, specifically about the liver. So there were like additional like bundle of tests that I bought through Quest that was like specifically for testing liver function and their kidney function and iron and all this. So you can order those additional things even if you're already getting some blood work done. And that's the other thing that you can look up too is whenever I search a medical question on a Google or a DuckDuckGo, I always add holistic to the end or the beginning, or sometimes I add traditional Chinese medicine to the end. And then you're going to actually like see the results that you're looking for, because if you just type, anything in, you're going to get the conventional answer, which is what you are trying to avoid in the first place. So anyways, if you look up holistic, blood work,
results or target ranges?
Ranges, yes. You'll be able to find and read about the difference between normal blood work results and optimal blood work results. So when you get your blood results from Quest or from wherever, there's that range, right? You're either the red or the green. So their green range, 95% of people fit into that green range. So if you're outside of that, like you're doing pretty bad. And this is where it comes in. You always hear people say, oh, my doctor said my blood work looks fine. Well, this is why, because 95% of people are going to fall into all the green ranges and they're going to be quote unquote fine.
And we know 95% of people aren't healthy.
Right. Like, look at 95% of Americans. Is that who you want to be investing yourself off of? So the optimal range, I mean, based on what I was looking at, it's pretty much the middle. I mean, that makes sense statistically, mathematically, the middle of the range. So if you're looking and you're right down the middle of all these, then you're good. But you can look up the actual optimal ranges to see where you fall for different things. So that was really helpful to me when I was looking at my blood work results.
Yep.
But the other thing I was going to say is, like, don't do testing if it's going to make you crazy. I don't know how to phrase it, but like, you have to do testing for things with a mindset of like, this is a one piece of a puzzle, and on this journey, just trying to gather information and not looking for, like, I don't know, just some sort of label or something.
Yeah, it is dangerous because then, yeah, and blood work is pretty low risk, right? Because it's just taking blood. But like, as you start thinking about like X-rays and CAT scans and MRIs and all that, you're exposing yourself to a lot more things that can do harm to your body than just, taking some blood from your arm.
Yeah.
But having said that, like, I went down that route because I was at the time, like, we've mentioned on the podcast before, like my mom passed away young, like in her early 30s, due to cancer. So like I, obviously had those fears. So like I wanted to make sure I went down the testing route to make sure that I didn't have something like a cancer thing growing. Now part of that I was able to align with like our pregnancies and stuff so that, and this is kind of a trick, right? If you have heavy medical expenses in a certain year, you'll often hit like a pregnancy or something, you're max out of pocket, which basically means once you hit your max out of pocket, like any other medical procedures that you have are completely covered by insurance. So I was just joking about this with my coworkers. It's test for you, test for you, test for you. Like, there's no cost for you. So
yeah, that's
anyway.
True. That's a life hack.
Yes, but you have to be careful because you are like, those things are exposing yourself to radiation and all of those things as well. Yeah. So, but yeah, you want to be. The purpose of this is not to cause more anxiety. It's to point you to a position of somewhere you can actually focus on adjusting and changing to get yourself better. So I think there are some folks who will say it's better not to test because it causes you more anxiety. But I'm certainly in the vote of getting yourself to be able to do targeted treatments to help solve a problem.
Yeah, I think, like in my case, if I never did any tests, then I would be self-treating issues that I don't have and potentially like making myself even worse off than I was. So it can be important to do.
Yep. Just want to reiterate, do the healthy food eating first and then do this. Because I feel like if you try to start diagnosing yourself and stuff, like a lot of the problems could be coming from processed foods and seed oils and like the bad stuff first, like get that out of your system and then see what's still not running optimally, because then that's something that you should probably spend a little more time on.
Yep. So I feel like everybody listening to this podcast already knows this, but just in case, talking about like, why would you even need to doctor yourself? Like, why not just go to a doctor and have them tell you what's wrong? So obviously we have found over the recent years that just any old doctor's office that you walk into is not necessarily going to be providing the best information and the best solutions. You can get Band-Aid fixes of prescriptions at best, I feel, in most doctor's offices. So that's where, you get to a point, or just being gaslit enough times in the doctor's office where they just tell you nothing's wrong with you. Or, I feel like every single time I've ever had an issue and I go to a doctor, they act as though I'm the first person that's ever come in with this issue. And I just can't understand how that's just statistically possible. I know it isn't. So I don't know if that's some act that they teach in medical school of just pretend, just make them feel crazy. Pretend like you've never heard anybody else, had this issue before. Give them no compassion or commiseration whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's how it feels. So you just get to a point where you start learning this holistic health and alternative medicine, which is not alternative, traditional medicine, I like to say. And you realize that's not what you're getting when you go into a Western medicine doctor's office. So,
and again, often not because these people are bad people or don't want to help people and make things better. It's literally what, just like all of us were brought up. The schools are funded by pharmaceutical companies, so they learn, it's just.
Oh, you just triggered me. This has been bothering me this week specifically.
Okay.
I understand.
Can't believe you used triggered.
Triggered.
So woke.
I know what you're saying, and I've said that myself too, but I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. So what you're taught in medical school, that's for your 50-year career as a doctor. That's it. That's all you've got. That's the best you've got. You don't ever do continuing research. You don't look into things. You don't read the literature.
No, they're going to read the literature I think doctors continue to learn, and good doctors at least continue to learn, but they're going to continue to learn the things that it's still stemming from the same system. But
this day and age, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. It's not an excuse.
Well, and now after COVID, they should be waking up.
Even before COVID, look at your patients. Are they getting better? No, they're not. Look at America. How are you a doctor in America and you think that things are going well?
Well, I mean, you do
wake up, look around, smell the coffee, and get off your butt. It's literally your job. I'm assuming you went into medicine because you wanted to help people. Well, try doing that.
Fair.
Sorry. I just heard that on a podcast. Well, they're just so busy. They don't have time to look into it. Well, BS. Freaking bad. We're all busy. Job. It's literally your job. I know you're busy. You have a lot to do. Too freaking bad.
I was going to say, especially with COVID now and it all coming out, that a lot of the conspiracy theorists were right. You would think that would wake more doctors up who were just blindly following the science of the CDC. And
I think it probably has for some. I wouldn't know because
so
I don't go to those doctors anymore. But that's the other thing that you can work to do, which it's just really hard. It's really hard to crack the code at first, but then once you do, you're kind of in this new bubble and that's finding like-minded doctors, finding medical freedom doctors, finding doctors that actually do what I'm saying, where they are constantly learning new things and looking into new things and assessing how their patients are and basing how they're doing off of that. I'm pretty sure it's in Japan, maybe, where they pay the doctors when they're well, and then they stop paying when they get sick.
Oh, nice.
And the doctors start get paid again when they're healthy again.
That makes more sense.
That just makes a whole lot more sense. But
well, that's a lot of the doctors. There's a doctor here who's now had his license removed and all that during COVID because he was doing that. He was trying to see what was effective with COVID and prescribing the ivermectin, and he was seeing crazy results of saving people's lives left and right.
Wow.
Dramatic. And of course he was shut down and massive lawsuits against him and having his license revoked and all of that. And he's fighting obviously all those back now, but that's, he finding a result of his very safe, drug that has, been around for a really long time and actually tested and all these things, not that that's the only way to have fought COVID, but certainly something that would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives, without question. And there's tons of stories of folks who, were in the hospitals and asking for ivermectin and then were laughed out or kicked out or
just denied,
just totally denied. So it's very sad.
Yep. Yeah. So, the best ways to do that are really looking online or through word of mouth. There's Facebook groups. I know we're in Central Florida and there's like a Crunchy Central Florida group or something where people ask for recommendations and stuff. So you just have to do the work, and that's what it is. It's work, but it's also work to stay not feeling your best and to stay chronically ill. So and I think if you go, it's choose your hard sort of a thing.
And I think something that we haven't done in the past that we've talked about that we're excited to start because we found one is like, I think it is good to have like a primary care doctor who really has your history and like knows who you are and shares your same beliefs. So we obviously have exited the world of Maine healthcare, but we still want to have a doctor that is, more holistic minded and can journey along with us and know our background and that we have over an extended period of time, because I think it's good to have someone to bounce ideas off of. And we certainly have that with our chiropractor, but we also want to have that with somebody else as well. So I think it's good to do the research, look at their website. Like that's the clearest thing. Like all the doctor's offices have websites and they'll have an about me or whatever, and you can clearly see if they're part of big medical groups. Like if they're part of big medical groups, that's probably a red flag that they're not going to be following more holistic or open to different ideas. Maybe not 100%, but that's a clear red flag. If they have their own small practice and that's a good place to start.
And a lot of times places will be like pay out of pocket or sort of a more of a membership fee where you pay monthly that, if they don't accept insurance. And I feel like not accepting insurance is a good
for sure
sign. Obviously it stinks because we still pay for insurance, more of a catastrophic sort of a policy at this point, and then we just pay out of pocket for everything else.
But some do. I mean, there are some who do take insurance that are more holistically minded. But that is true. If you do find ones that don't take insurance, there's a reason they don't take insurance. It's because they don't want to be tied to the rules that insurance companies make.
The other thing you can do if you find somebody online, you can call and just ask questions and just be bold, right? Like just be upfront, be bold with your questions, because why do you want to tiptoe around it and then eventually find out that they don't see things the way that you do, and then you wasted time and money to go and be seen and find out then that it's not a good fit.
Somewhat unrelated to this, but it is funny once you wake up and you woken up that you really start to see how bad, or just how it's almost laughable how programmed everybody is. And we see it in the medical field, but we see it even more. We came across and watched at your mom's house. There was some TV that was on that was the news. And it's you were describing, it is so painfully obvious that this is all fake propaganda, fake stuff to show you like what they want you to show.
Just you can like just tell that what they're saying is scripted and you know, like what it's just not genuine. You know, I don't know. I guess I used to think the news was genuine.
Or at least like we're, you know, getting facts and stuff. So
I remember so when you like a couple of months ago, Brian had a little accident where he almost cut his finger off. And so he did have to get a surgery for that. And when we were sitting in that waiting room, the news was on and we were just like, what? And I guess we were kind of making faces or making expressions or something. And another lady in the waiting room was like agreeing with us. And we were like, oh, I thought we were being subtle, but I guess not.
That's also the time we went to the ER, 2 different ERs. And when we were sitting in the second ER waiting room, super late at night, we met this guy next to us who like believed everything we were believing. Like
he was more of a conspiracy theorist than we are.
Yeah, he like it was crazy. He like stood up to like cops and stuff, or like it was a different storyline, but like all sorts of crazy stuff. And we just happened to meet him in the ER.
Made our like 8 hours of waiting go by a little faster because unfortunately cutting your finger is not that much of an emergency.
Cutting it half off is not an emergency apparently. Yeah, don't try to separate frozen hamburgers with a knife.
Yes.
Long story short.
And also, apparently, be careful with avocados. They see that a lot too.
It wasn't even like a knife, like a sharp knife.
It was a butter knife, or like it was like a table knife.
A table knife, yeah.
Yeah.
Just I was trying to separate them and then just the force, and my hand was on the other side. So
nightmares.
Yeah.
Nightmares.
It's still like not 100%, but anywho, those are the things. Like we go back and forth on this. Like there are some people who believe, and it's true because they've had the experiences with like their Achilles tendon and other things that have like ripped or almost fully ripped, and like they don't go get anything done and it heals. For me, this was like a severed, like completely severed tendon. Yeah. Maybe it would have been okay. I don't know. For me, this is where like
an accident. This wasn't like, I don't know what scenario else that could happen, but it's like literally a knife cut it. So that's not really something God was planning for, It's like our human.
Well, and to me too, it's like one of those things that's common sense. So like if you sever it, your tendons are under a lot of tensile or a lot of tension because it's attached to your muscles. So like if you cut it, it's going to be naturally pulling on it, and it could like pull up. And so like, I don't know. I got the surgery, and it was fine.
With no anesthesia.
Heck yeah. I kept saying like, they're like, okay, we're going to put you under. And I was like, do we have to do it without going under? And the nurses were like, yeah, you have to go under. And then like they got the doctor because I kept insisting, and they like pulled the doctor in, and he was like, no, he doesn't need to go under. Like, great. Thank you.
Like if you can lay still.
Yeah. He's like, you just have to be still.
Same thing at the dentist. Like you don't have to get the anesthesia unless you're like somebody's really nervous, or you're gonna like flip out or move around too much, or like if it's like more serious procedure.
And they kept asking me all the way to the ER, like all the way in the OR, like this is all pre-prep, and then we went to the OR, and they were getting me, the nurses were getting me prepped and getting the anesthesiologist was there and all that, and I was like, I'm not doing general, he's just doing thing. And they're like, they got all in a tizzy, and they had to wait for the doctor to get there, and he's like, no, it's fine, we'll just do local. And then they tried to like cover me up like fully so that I couldn't watch. And I'm like, I have no problem watching. And the doctor kept saying like, it's okay, it can be uncovered. And the nurses like covered me again. And the doctor's like, and the big sheet over me. I'm like, this is real. My arms off to the side. Like, so thankfully the doctor was open to letting me do what I want. So I was just like talking to him as he was, had my fingers open on the table, stretching my tendons and stitching me up. Not for everybody, but like,
yeah, some people definitely cannot handle that, but
you could go in there and still be, the point of covering is so you don't, see all the blood and all that good stuff. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like if you don't want it,
just say
it.
Like if you absolutely have to have it, they're not going to let you not have it.
Yeah.
Like with anything.
Yeah. So they just did a bunch of like lidocaine shots all in my finger and around, and didn't feel a thing.
You're a trooper.
Hopefully we don't have any more of those instances that we have to deal with.
Oh my goodness. So I just want to go circle back,
bring it home.
Make you feel comfortable like you're in your office environment. Let's circle back.
All the jargon.
Let's circle back. Let's look at a 30,000 foot level.
High level. Yeah.
Anyways, I wanted to talk about the social media thing again because I think it's just really important. This is a trap that I found that I had fallen into, of allowing people to make rules for my life that they're not necessarily following in their life. So that's the thing. And I need to get better about this. So I was talking to a friend today, and she was saying how, oh, like you guys are so great with your food. Like you guys do such a great job, and like you're perfect or something like that. And I was like, no. Like, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's all about like what works, for you. And so I was telling her, like, usually when I'm in a phase of like, I'm trying to figure something out that's going on with myself or another family member, just kind of down or struggling with things, like I just am more off of social media, or at least not posting anything. But I think I need to get better at sharing the harder times, and kind of showing the times where like, hey, like we're not perfect, or, we have weeks where we eat out way too much, or whatever it is, because I never want to be somebody that is like making other people feel badly. And ultimately that's on you, as the consumer, it's on you of how you allow things to make you feel. But I just like to be really vulnerable and transparent with my stuff. So anyways, the point is, I was falling into that trap of thinking that these other people were living their lives perfectly, and then they finally did post something more real, and it's like, oh, I'm over here beating myself up because I got Chick-fil-A, but now she's admitting like they do Chick-fil-A every Friday or something, like, and so it's like, don't allow people who don't know your life. They don't know your schedule. They don't know your kids. They don't know whether you have help with the kids at all or not. You know, like, don't let those people dictate what you're doing in your life. Or you see these quote unquote health gurus and you think they have it all figured out, but then eventually they share a story like, oh, they, you know, did the Dutch test or something and had something that was crazy off, and they've been struggling with this for months and trying to figure it out. And it's like, nobody has it all figured out. I can promise you that. If there's anyone you follow that makes you feel like, gosh, they are so healthy, their kids are so healthy, they never have problems, like, that's just, it's a lie. I'm not saying they're liars. Yeah, it's the social media facade, you know, that we all fall victim to, even if you think that you're immune to doing that. So, and it, you know, it happens in real life too. You're not that close with everyone you know to where you know the inner workings. You know, most people aren't open about their struggles unless you're talking about your best friend or something. So just an encouragement to not be so hard on yourself and not get down on yourself if you're struggling. Like, I know I've talked before to people about like, oh, like the kids have a cold, and it's just like so frustrating because we try to do everything right and we keep them souped up on healthy foods and we give them elderberry and they get sleep and drink water and like do all the things, and then they get a runny nose just like every other kid. And it's like, yeah, kids are gonna get a cold. Like, that's part of growing. It's part of building your immune system. It's a way that the body detoxes. Like, it's gonna happen. There's literally no avoiding it.
Although I will say, to counter that, I had the weirdest experience last night. I had like a cold for like 30 minutes. I felt fine going to bed at night. And then like around 12:30 or so, I kind of like woke up. I was wearing my mouth tape. There's a previous episode about that. And I like had to sneeze, which is not fun with the mouth tape on. But like I sneezed and like all of a sudden it was that, you know, one side of my throat, super scratchy, very sore.
We all have that, like that first sneeze where you're like, oh crap.
Yeah. This was like sneeze to like really bad sore throat. My whole right side of my sinuses, like totally filled up and blowing my nose. I was like, stomach was nauseous. Like it was just bad. It was like, what is happening? And then about 30 minutes later, after, you know, going to the restroom and just like blowing my nose again and again and again. And I got back in bed and did a little spray on my throat and was able to fall back asleep. And in the morning, totally fine. No problems.
Slept in linen sheets. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that has literally never happened to me. It was like I had a full blown cold for like 30 minutes and then went to sleep and like I feel fine. So that's the first time that's ever happened.
Well, and I mean,
super weird.
This is literally the counterpoint of what I'm saying, but with our kids, they do get over things.
They do.
Not every single time, but typically colds run through in about 24 hours, maybe especially 48 Georgia. Hours. Yes, which
Georgia can get sick and like it's over.
Yep.
Avery's more drawn out typically.
And Avery had a few more years of not, you know, where we didn't know things. So
yeah,
it shows. But anyways, the point is that it is worth it to be healthier. Obviously,
yeah,
you avoid a lot of things that are not fun. Like even Avery on her last cold, she complained about her ears bothering her for the first time ever.
Yeah,
she has never complained about ears. And so I got my garlic oil. You know, I had that, my little tincture of garlic oil in the cabinet. I'm like, holistic crunchy mom to the rescue. I'm doing the ear massages, all this stuff. And like, she was fine.
Yeah, we had the tea tree. It was like a eucalyptus tea tree oil, like rub or whatever.
Yeah, it's like Vicks, but
yeah, it's like
toxic.
Vicks, but yeah, exactly. Which was good. Rubbing it on the feet. Classic. Yep. That's like old school.
So anyways, you want to do good things, but just don't feel bad if people in your family still get sick, because we're all gonna have times like that. So yes.
Yep. And start looking out for malaria next.
Oh wait. That's our next episode. No, it's not. Don't get a malaria vaccine.
Yes.
It's not a viral illness.
Yeah. Just all those mosquitoes they released with malaria. Anywho.
You're going to get us taken off YouTube again.
Oh, yeah.
Our last video, if you don't follow on Instagram, our last video got censored on YouTube. So if you want to hear the full uncensored, uncut version, go to like either Apple or Spotify and listen to it as a podcast. the YouTube video had to get cut down a little bit. But I hope you guys found this episode helpful. Just, something that came to mind and thought I'd share. So.
All right. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.